Jessica, Jay, and Matt, we're so thankful to have you with us tonight. Um, you guys have a wealth of SEO knowledge on a variety of SEO topics. And seeing the deck, I was really excited for just the breadth that you're covering tonight. So thank you so much. And I'm gonna hand it over to you guys to go ahead and get started.
So I guess I've been tasked with giving the intro to Trinity. So we are Trinity Insight, a digital marketing agency that does a wide range of things, SEO being one of them. Our Philadelphia office, which is kind of the home base, is where myself, Jess, and Matt work. And also our CEO, Craig, is in the area as well. We have another office in Minnesota where we have UX, email, engineering. Did I miss anything? I think that's it, right?
Yeah, conversion rate optimization, design and build.
Yeah, all the good stuff, all the more tech and engineering side is over there. So as a whole, we do pretty much anything a website would need done. We focus primarily on e-commerce websites, but we've been pivoting a little bit more lately and working with some B2B clients and similar things like that. I think for the three of us, we all have a pretty healthy background in content. I started in kind of the affiliate market and front-end development side, more on the technical side, and Jess and Matt have both done a ton of content over the years. I won't pad your resumes, but you can kind of share yourself or your own experience, maybe.
Yeah, sure. So, I think Jay did a pretty good job. He's definitely our tech expert. Jess and I definitely throw him multiple questions a day about anything tech, any code. We definitely go to Jay. Jess we call her the content queen. She's done everything under the sun for e-commerce websites. And I've had some experience with content across multiple e-commerce websites, as well as quite a bit of social media marketing.
Yep. I don't know if I like the name content queen or not, but yeah, my background is definitely in content, spanning from journalism to PR, social media marketing, and kind of everything in between. So yeah, between the three of us, we have a healthy balance of technical and content-related SEO knowledge. So we're kind of able to kind of play with both areas for all of our partners. As Jay mentioned, primarily their e-commerce that we do work with, a lot of B2B, some local storefronts and smaller companies as well. And yeah, content is a huge part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we're glad to be talking about the ways in which content and SEO kind of work together and kind of dispel some of the myths that might have and walk through some of the misconceptions.
We're going to be talking all about content and why it's critical to SEO. So hopefully this, we are going to weave quite a bit of SEO into this, but as content marketers, we focus on a lot of that. So when you are doing content marketing, just realize that you are doing some SEO, and a lot of the content that you put on your site is providing some organic search benefit. So hopefully you get some angles from both sides tonight. Right, so we're going to look at this quick agenda. We're going to talk about content SEO.
We got too excited.
Content SEO, different content types, content optimization, content planning, performance tracking, and then of course we'll leave plenty of time for questions. We'll jump right in here. So first question, get all those keywords ready. So we want to know just what industry are you guys writing content for? What industry are you involved in? Or what industries are you interested in writing content for? And Jess or Jay, I am not able to see this chat sharing the screen. So if you guys want to shout out some of the good answers.
We got software as a service so far. Real estate, very nice.
Oh, beautiful. Government.
Ooh, government, huh?
Publishing.
Telecom. Nice. Small business news for Philly. This is so interesting. I was definitely expecting that most people here would be from Philly, since we were the Philly content meetup, and that's awesome that we're expanding even farther. Also, shout out if anyone here does writing for their own blog as well versus a company. I'm sure we span a lot of different mediums for content here.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
We've got education, a couple folks in education, restaurants. What is CPG?
I'm not familiar with the term either.
Consumer packaged goods.
Okay.
So retail? Retail? Oh no, my dog is making noise in my background.
Cool.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Brand Dietz and Watson. Cool.
All right. So content SEO, why it matters. Without content, you're not speaking to the search engine to help customers find you. As we know, online search has exploded to the majority of how customers are finding your brand today. If you're not online, frankly, you're losing out on a ton of potential business. Your site will look like the early 2000s if you don't have good content on there. So just a couple examples of Google bot crawler. So using the fetch and render tool, you can see how some websites can render blank. So while search engines have gotten much better at reading websites, you still have to make sure to follow best practices to ensure that Google can see images, but also the text as well and understand what your website is all about. And Google's mission statement or webmaster guidelines, their guiding principles, they want to provide users with the highest quality, most relevant results. And high quality content does not necessarily mean just having 5,000 words on each page. Your content has to be good. It has to be valuable. Spelling mistakes, walls of text are just a few of the things that are what we would consider unoptimized. You want to make sure that you are writing for a reading level. I believe around 8th or 9th grade is the reading level that you should shoot for the search engine to be able to fully understand everything that's on the page. And while Google is getting smarter and can read your website almost as well as humans, they're not there yet. So you still need to leave some clues, some cookie crumbs to the cookie jar, as they say. You want to give Google every opportunity to understand exactly what is on your web page. Right, and first, a couple content-specific updates that have occurred over the years. Ranking and position are in correlation to Google algorithms. And again, there have been many algorithm updates over the years. Google says that they make many updates throughout the year. There are some even that occur each day. And we picked out 3 that are pretty paramount to the content marketing industry. So Panda, all the way back in 2011, was really the first one that targeted low quality content. So you're talking about spammy links at the bottom of pages, just walls of text that are content heavy or keyword stuffing, as we like to refer to it as. Not really writing for the user, but writing for the search engine was a popular tactic to get pages to rank higher back in the day. And Panda was really the first algorithm update targeted to make webmasters write content for users first. And then in 2013, Hummingbird was the first update where we saw some inquisition of AI. So Google was, thinking about that all the way back in 2013, trying to better understand more complex search queries or attribute shorter search queries to longer search queries, really trying to understand the semantic search that humans are instead of really exact match. And then BERT came out in the fall of last year, was described as the biggest change in search in the last 5 years. So from Hummingbird all the way up to BERT, you're really looking at a huge advancement in AI over the last 5 years. And so again, the algorithm was ridiculously changed for semantics and better understanding how humans are searching. Again, voice search is obviously another big one. Right, and I referenced Google Webmaster Guidelines a few slides ago, and here we have a couple of the big ones that Google harps on. We're talking about EAT, high level of expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness is something that can kind of guide how you're writing your content for your site. And so there are several clues that you can lead the search engines to, like author bios. Authoritativeness includes backlinks or other traffic signals that help Google understand, okay, this website is really authoritative. This is powerful within their specific niche. And then Your Money, Your Life. Again, a content update that came out a few years ago, but really targeted some, I guess you could say, imperative websites that are providing potentially harmful information if it's wrong. So specifically around money or health or wellness of users. Google really harps on that and wants to make sure that information is accurate, so they're not leading anyone to make any life-changing decisions offline from inaccurate information on websites. Right, and content does have a pretty large effect on traffic. So you can see there on the right-hand side of the screen, the average length of content for the top 10 results. And you can see that there's a direct correlation for how much content you have on a page and how well that site ranks. Of course, there are some anomalies for some very powerful websites, but this is a general guideline that you probably should take into consideration when you're writing content for certain pages. And then specifically, as Jess and Jay will get into a little bit later, using keyword research to establish a topic is paramount to targeting your specific users, making sure that your user is finding you at the right stage of the purchasing cycle. And optimized content means ranking keywords. The more ranking keywords that you have across your site for pages that are targeting the right users, the more conversions you'll have, the more money that the website is going to make. And there are also additional factors for ranking that include behavior analysis and quality raters. So we're talking about time on page, bounce rate, and other metrics that do have a small effect on the ranking potential of a page. Right, and then content quality. As I mentioned earlier, just having a wall of text on your web page does not necessarily mean that it's going to rank. So writing just to hit 3,000 words, or writing white text on a white background like we used to do in high school to meet the page requirement is not going to be good in Google's eyes, and your page is not going to perform as well. And that also means duplicate content. Google does not want to see duplicate content, and it is very harmful to your search rankings. Again, how can your content be beneficial? We're looking at useful and informative information, something that is more valuable than other sites. Specifically, looking at what your competitors are putting out is a great place to start if you're looking to increase the amount of content you're putting on your site. And even Google has come out and said one of the best things you can do is make better content than your competitors. And thin or bad content, so also duplicate content, can result in a manual action. So you'll receive a notification in Search Console, and this is the last thing that you want to see when you log in there. This can be very difficult to recover from and takes, I would say, minimum a year to try and recover and, establish your site as, good in the eyes of Google. All right, and we have a couple of GA screenshots here, just taking a look at the benefits of content. So the top, you can see, was a blog that was regularly posting for about 2 years, and you can see the general uptrend up until about December 2019, and then you can see that the blog has been dormant for most of this year, and you can see the general downturn in traffic. Even with something like evergreen content that is readily always useful to the user, if you're not regularly updating a blog or posting more useful information, Google will find new content that is better than yours, and you will eventually lose your rankings. And then you can see on the bottom, you can see a website that had relatively little traffic and then started to use their blog or their e-commerce pages effectively, adding content to them, increasing their authority. You can see just how much the traffic has exponentially increased so far in that span of time. All right, moving into content types.
All right, so there are 4 main types of content that we want to just discuss quickly today, and then we'll get into some optimization techniques that hopefully will be helpful for you guys. But it sounds like looking at the different types of businesses that you guys are writing for, most of you will fall comfortably in one of these. First, obviously, being blog content, then e-commerce, which is something that we deal with a lot, evergreen content, which is something you may or may not have heard, a term you may or may not have heard, and service-based. So the first up would be the blog. Obviously, you're all very familiar with blogs, just a general purpose website that's built pretty much to cater to a niche audience for the most part. Usually an expertise in a specific thing, whether it be tech or mommy blogs were very popular and still are. It could be anything. Typically, readers are expected to come back more so than they would on other types of websites or come back for other types of content. You're expected to give consistent value to that reader, information, whatever it may be. Tips for the blog in terms of just general optimization. For sure, you want to utilize social media and just build your brand. Blogs are brand based more so than other types of content. And here's some popular blog examples. Obviously, there are millions of them, but The Pioneer Woman, one of the more popular mommy blog types, and Gary Vaynerchuk, we're all probably very familiar with him. I'm sure some of you love and some of you hate him. And then ProBlogger, one of the more popular kind of aggregator sites that has a lot of helpful articles just surrounding a wide range of topics, really. Next piece would be e-commerce. So e-commerce content is content developed specifically to enhance a website and ultimately increase the profile of the site and or drive sales or revenue. So that's a pretty loaded statement in terms of the type of content that falls under that umbrella. But the most popular types that you'll see would be landing pages. So anything that's for a specific product that may not necessarily have products on it, but say you're selling footwear, you could have a page on Nike footwear, or Nike cleats, something like that. And also category pages. Content on category pages is super important, as I'm sure you guys are all aware of. Support pages, anything giving information to actual users, there are search queries that they might be looking for. Support pages can help answer and bring in additional traffic and or revenue. Product descriptions, very simple. We all see product descriptions. They can be helpful in organic search results and also when users are trying to make a purchase decision. And blogs. E-commerce websites utilize blogs. A lot of them do. The good ones do, at least. And they can be very helpful in terms of ultimately driving traffic and revenue. And here's a quick example. This is a website called Wine Enthusiast. Their primary focus is selling wine accessories, glasses, coolers, what have you. Anything wine related is pretty much sold there. You can see a piece of content. This is supporting content. So it's gifts for wine-loving dads, basically an article that runs through the top wine-loving dad gifts they have, whatever that may be, quote unquote, 1 to 10, kind of like a list style. And its ultimate goal is just to get people to go into the site and purchase something, essentially. Next up, evergreen content. So evergreen content, unlike blog content or even some supporting e-commerce content, is designed to live on your site indefinitely. That's why it's called evergreen, since those trees never die. But it's not designed to just go away. This is going to be content that's there forever. So resource pages, user resources, FAQs, that sort of thing, things that people will search and continue to search. You may have to update this content periodically, but the idea is it's a landing page or set of resources that they can come to indefinitely and will just bring in traffic for the rest of, I guess, the time that it's posted. And an example of this, here's a popular site. This is a rental website. So I saw somebody was in real estate. So this is a very interesting example that has, instead of necessarily a defined blog or a set of landing pages where they're posting kind of content, quick hitting content type stuff, they've opted for a resource center where users can come in and find individual resources. These are all evergreen pages that will just live indefinitely, and they update them periodically. So tips could be anything, tips, FAQs, support, all that stuff is found in their tenant resources center. And it's definitely more on the evergreen side. And that's a pretty defined example of evergreen content.
Hey Jay, question for you. We've got some people here who work on things like instruction manuals, work in firms like biotech and financial. So could they see an SEO benefit or SEO impact from using like PDFs and more straightforward copy that's not necessarily as creative?
Yeah, so I mean, PDFs, alternative copy, video, whatever have you, that stuff is crawlable. So it's not going to typically be the same as, say, posting it in an article, but Google can crawl and index PDFs. If you go into the do a site search in Google, you can see any PDF on the site. You can find it as long as it's indexable. So having pages where you are listing your PDFs, either for download or just loading inside the page, can be beneficial for sure. Cool. Was there any other questions, or am I allowed to move on? All right, so next up, service-based content. This is an interesting one. So a lot of sites that are similar to, or a lot of sites that are designed really to collect, I guess you would say, form information, submissions, or set up appointments. So that's going to be stuff like trades, electricians, plumbers we have here, anything like that that's really not selling an actual product. but they are trying to collect your either email or get you to sign up or sign up for an appointment. So it could be medical as well. They're big with that. Dental, real estate, those kind of sites. You will often see service-based content. And this is really, again, designed to pull you in, get you to say, hey, we want you to fill this out based on this article or the service that we're providing. And here's an example here. Here's a plumber. This is a local plumber that I found. I'm not sure if they're good or not, but they have their main website on the left and then just an HVAC replacement and plumbing page. So this is kind of a landing page style page that's really designed to pull in users, get them to see the services that they're providing and sign up for service from that, book an appointment there. So those are the 4 main types of content, or the way we bundle the types of content. And now we'll talk a bit about content optimization. So no matter what type of content you're using, the content optimization steps that we're going to outline here can apply to all of them. So the first thing, before you get into the actual optimization steps, first thing we need to do is take inventory of the current state of our content. So you have to go in, analyze your site. Hey, how many articles do I have? What do they cover? Are any of them already ranking for anything? All that good stuff. Make a little checklist for yourself so you can make an assessment on what pages do and don't need to be optimized when you actually go in to do some content optimization. And so when you're looking at an article, we can identify some of the basic SEO elements. And these are the things that you're going to want to attend to most outside of the actual written copy. Obviously, written copy is super important, but generally when we're optimizing a site, we take a look at these factors first because they are very impactful. So the first would be your title, and this top box here is a screenshot of the actual organic search result, what that looks like in Google compared to what is actually on the page. So we see this is a mashed potatoes recipe. Mashed potato recipe secrets is the title of the article. The description is listed there as well. On the page, we can see mashed potato recipes is the H1. Then we have our H2 and our content section. So title tags are typically going to be your most important piece. That's probably the most important ranking signal outside of what is physically written onto the page, then followed by your H1. And then a description is not really a ranking factor, but it is important for organic search results. As we can see in this description here, mashed potatoes, which would be most likely what people are searching for, is bolded in that organic search result. So there are benefits, and they can also pull people in and increase click-through rate for organic search results as well.
Hey, can I ask a question to the chat? Can you give a thumbs up if you guys are on WordPress? That's the CMS that we typically recommend to partners because it's obviously the most intuitive to use and it can be made very SEO friendly. I know all 3 of us prefer it both in professional life as well as for all of our kind of hobbies and side hustles and endeavors too. And so, Jay, want to chat a little bit about just optimizing and those things in WordPress, and if someone's unfamiliar with where they might find those different pieces, where they can do so.
Yeah, if you're using WordPress, for all you WordPress users, congratulations. That's a great platform, first and foremost. But yeah, so typically, if you're using WordPress, you're going to be using a plugin called Yoast, which allows you to make simple SEO changes. It's a free plugin. It's a free add-on. That's the most popular way to go about making these sort of changes. On each post, you will have a box underneath your article that you can go in, drop the title, drop the description, also modify the URL if you want, so if you need to. Set your keywords if you want to go in. There are some advanced functions, but that's typically the best way to optimize WordPress content for sure. Now, obviously, every platform has its own way to customize depending on what you're on. But for WordPress, the most popular one, hopefully a lot of you are on there. If you're writing a lot of content, that would be the best way to go about it. So in terms of actual best practices for optimization, so we talked a little bit about titles, descriptions, and headings. Just general best practices when you're looking at those things, what you should be looking for and how you should be planning to optimize. So title tags, like we mentioned before, are a major ranking factor, but you need to keep that title length under 60 characters. That's because if you don't, when you go into organic search, you've probably all seen titles that are clipped off. You have the 3 dots, the ellipses. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. You want users to be able to see the optimized title tag that you've taken 3 hours to create, and they want to see what messages you're doing or what you're selling, etc. get your branding in there. You want everything to be uniform and properly formatted. Site branding should always be present unless you have, a title that's simply too long to support it. You want to make sure you're using keyword research. Anytime you're optimizing anything, you want to make sure you're using some sort of data to back that up. Guessing is you might be right, or if it's a brand page only, you might be able to use your brand, but you still want to make sure you're letting keyword research or some sort of data inform your decision. And also use plain language. That goes for pretty much anything. You want to make sure you're using plain language, speaking clearly, talking to people like they are people, as opposed to optimizing or writing for a bot or a crawler. Meta descriptions are pretty cool. They're not a ranking factor like we talked about earlier, but they do help a lot with click-through rate. So that's an important thing to optimize as well. You want to keep those under 160 characters. Again, we don't want those cut off. If you're trying to get somebody to come to your site, you want to make sure that they can read your message, get in, get out, and convert. Search terms will be bolded. So if someone searches, like we saw earlier, for mashed potatoes, those terms will be bolded in the meta description, which can be a powerful draw when you're trying to get people to click. Headings are another important ranking factor. So when you go into the actual copy on page, you will have opportunities to drop headings pretty much wherever you see fit. The first heading on your page, or the main title, should always be an H1 typically. You should typically have one H1 followed by supporting headings like H2s, H3s, etc. You can think of them like an outline. That's how you would use that essentially. But all the subsequent headings should support your H1, and your H1 should support your title tag. So they all kind of work hand in hand. They don't have to be the same, but they should all be pointing to the same direction.
And with the Gutenberg update, it's a lot easier to see what headings things are. You're able to really change really quickly, H2s and H3s. And if no one's familiar, the H1 tag is always going to be the title of your post, assuming you're using WordPress. But really, probably the majority of CMS platforms are gonna use your title of the page as the H1 tag.
Absolutely. I see someone in the comments said Yoast released a version for Drupal. I did not know that. That's pretty cool. All right, so getting to actually optimizing content. So this is, you can do this a ton of different ways. And if you go to 10 different websites, they're gonna give you 10 different methods to do it. We're just giving you a general guide of how we like to go about doing keyword research and doing content optimization. Feel free to input your own methods, use your own templates, whatever you feel comfortable with. But this is typically, roughly, quickly, I guess you'd say, how we like to optimize. So there are some basic steps that you want to or that you want to check off. We talked about identifying the pages. So when you take inventory of your site, assessment, what pages are or aren't performing well organically, what pages look like they could use some love, some TLC, what pages look fine. You want to make sure you're taking assessment of that. You want to build or download a template to track any changes that you're making and document your keyword research and the title tag, meta description updates, etc. And you also want to perform the research and implement the changes, obviously. You got to put it up. If you don't make it live, it's not going to help you. Okay, so some keyword research tools. There are quite a few out there. The two that I would recommend for users who are either new to keyword research or even vets, we use SEMrush. It's a paid tool. It's not the cheapest tool out there, but it's very flexible and it gives you a very nice set of data. You can see that on the left-hand side there. That's just a quick snapshot of, say you entered a term, in this case, workstation computers. It gives you what the related keywords are. It could be thousands of them. The actual volume, so that would be the monthly search volume, how many users are searching for that term each month. And then it gives you some advanced metrics, like how much the estimated cost per click is if you were to buy it, the competition score being how hard it would be to rank for them, etc. There are all sorts of tools. It also has content gap tools and backlinking, all sorts of fun stuff for SEOs. That's a great tool if you have budget for that and you need to do a lot of keyword research. If not, there is a free alternative we have on the right here. It's called the Hoff, and it uses the same exact database that SEMrush uses, but it's free. It's a little more simple and a little more basic, but if you're just optimizing general content and you really just need, hey, I need the search term and the monthly search volume, that's a great tool for you. All you have to do is sign up and you can use that tool indefinitely. So here's a question for the chat that we've built in, obviously. How many of you have done keyword research? And what methods? I guess we can add that on there. What methods do you use? So I guess we'll give the people a second there. Maybe we'll just roll on while they answer.
I
Matt?
don't know how. Sounds like a future meetup.
I'm a stickler. Let's hit the next one. There we go. Okay, so while you guys answer that, I thought it would make sense to go through a rough template of keyword research that you guys can use if you don't already have one, and two, walk through just the basic steps of performing keyword research. So we have a page here. This is a page for an Apple AirPods knockoff called BlackPod. So you can see immediately the title tag is BlackPods 3, BlackPod being the branding on the end there. This page has no description, and the H1 is also BlackPods 3. So not the best optimized site. I mean, this could use some TLC for sure. This isn't the worst I've ever seen, but something that we can kind of just quickly tease up and see how we do it. Okay, so before you get, thank you. Before you get started, you're going to need to use or download, build, or find some sort of keyword research template. This is a snapshot of our template. We are going to link to this for all you guys if you need one after the fact. Essentially, you have a place where you can drop your links. You can document the existing title, meta description, and heading, and then add a new title, meta description, and heading while viewing the keywords that you're targeting. And we'll get more into that in a second of how this all kind of works. Okay, so before you do that, so you've got your template, whatever template that may be. So how would we go about actually optimizing a page? So your first step would be log into whatever keyword tool you're using, obviously SEMrush. This is the example that we're using here. So I started off, just put in BlackPod to see what the demand was for that term. You would then go on to anything related. So it could be Apple AirPods, True Wireless headphones, Best Wireless headphones, any term under the sun that you can think of that you would want to potentially use to optimize this page, you would then do follow-up searches for that. And in this document, this is kind of a rough example, and I hope this all makes sense. This document allows you to both list your keyword terms on the left-hand side, and I'll touch on what all that stuff is there, and then craft a new title, description, and heading on the right. So the left-hand column, you see keyword and monthly search volume. That's all the data that we just saw in SEMrush and or the Hoff. So any term that I found that was relevant, I popped that in that field there. There were, I think, well over 1,000. Typically, it's going to be a lot, depending on what you're looking at. Your next step, once you have all those terms aggregated, you have to go through the painful steps of actually sorting and seeing which ones you want to use. We choose to use letters to denote terms that we want to target. So in this case, anything marked X, we usually pick 3 terms are the terms that we're going to target for a title tag and or heading on this page. So that's why you see in the selected side there, selected column, there are 3 X's. All the terms marked Y are secondary terms that we may want to use in secondary headings on the page and or the description, or if there's room, maybe the H1 tag or the title somewhere else. So typically though, we want to stick to our top 3 terms, and you're going to have to select those based on what you think is the most relevant. What do you think you have the best chance to rank for, and what the page is actually about? And I know you probably can't see this, but this would be the final result of that document. If you need to deliver this to somebody, and you'll see when you download the document, you can use the first page to make it nice, neat, and pretty, where you have your URL in the first column, you have your targeted terms, followed by the total monthly search volume, your new title, new description, and new heading, all in one easy to read spot. You can just do that down for all the URLs. If you're not doing that, if you're just using this for yourself, you're creating the article or you're modifying the article, you can just use the existing template we saw on the first page and use that to kind of inform your decision. So one thing you will want to consider while you're optimizing pages for sure is search intent. And this is something that when you're first starting out doing keyword research for optimization, you will run into for sure. A lot of times people think that because their product is named something or their brand is named something, that that's what a page should be called, or that's what that page will rank for. So this is an image on the right that gives you a quick example. I just typed in Marlins. So you see we have the Florida Marlins there, but what if you were a brand that was selling Marlins or selling Marlin burgers or something like that? and you just optimize a page for Marlin, you're not going to get the desired search result. You're going to get snuffed out by all of these baseball team results. You have to be very careful and deliberate about what you're doing and how you're optimizing. So you optimize or choose a set of keywords or terms that you think may be ranking for something else, even if you don't think they'll rank for something else, you want to make sure you do quick Google searches just to confirm, hey, is the intent of the keywords that I'm using to target this page, does that match up with what people are actually searching for? And then lastly, for this content piece, content optimization. So an author bio is something that is important in terms of establishing EAT, which is something that Matt talked about earlier, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's not the most critical thing in SEO, but it's something that is good to have. If you have authors writing on your site or you're writing content for your own site, linking out to that author page is an important step that I think would be valuable, and it does generate some additional organic value. And some additional steps. So alt tags, we've all seen images everywhere on every site, but some of you may or may not be familiar with alt tags. Alt tags essentially allow you to provide additional context around what an image is and what its relationship to the page is. So when you look at any website, if you look into the code, you'll probably see an alt equals, and in quotation marks, there may be text, and that text would be considered alt tags or alt tags. That this impacts actual search results. So an alt tag can influence what appears in Google image search, as well as it helps for handicapped people who come in and read the site. If they need to have a hearing aid or something, the alt text can be read and picked up. So that's really helpful and valuable as well. These things should be kept short. You don't want to drum on endlessly about alt tags. Just make a quick snippet about what an image is. Add that in. Again, a lot of you are on WordPress, a lot of you are on defined CMSs that have built-in tools to allow you to add alt tags. You just want to make sure you're doing so. Okay, and lastly, internal linking. This is an important practice, something that is often overlooked. Once you've optimized your titles, headings, metas, and you have your beautiful content written and it's all on the site, you want to make sure that you're making proper internal linking or using proper internal linking strategies between other pages on your website. So if you have like we saw earlier, a wine website, you want to make sure you're linking the wine links out to some of your products if you're selling wine, or wine glass links out to some of your products like we see on this page. If you're doing a service, you want to make sure that your landing page has links going out to the desired landing page where they can collect the data. You just want to make sure you're using a proper internal link structure. Typically, we recommend using like one link per 300 words. There's no defined limit of how you can do it. That's just typically a recommendation that we like to make, so you're not spamming or overstuffing some of your articles. You want to also make sure that you use optimized anchor text, which you can see in these highlighted green areas. The text that you use to wrap your link in, that would be your anchor text. So you don't want to link to using words like the or and. You want to make sure that you're linking using defined words or keywords that make sense considering the page that you're linking out to. And lastly, you want to make sure your links are followed. So you can either follow or no follow link. No follow passes no link equity, which is something that we're probably not going to have time to get into today. But follow links do pass equity, essentially allow crawlers to know, hey, this is a link that we want you to go to, and pass some equity and give a benefit and or boost to that next coming page.
Awesome. So next thing we're going to do is kind of jump into the portion of content planning. And by the way, we're going to be answering questions at the end of this. For anybody who missed the agenda at the beginning, we will do a Q&A. So please feel free, type in some questions to the chat as you go through. I think Nicole and Jess are working on kind of collecting those and making sure we have time for them at the end. I imagine the majority of you who are focusing content are doing content writing, and that takes up a large portion of your day. But the other piece that's just as difficult and time consuming can be planning the content itself. And so we wanted to make sure to touch on that because from our perspective, SEO isn't something that happens at the end once the piece of content is already published or once a new web page goes live. It's something that should be considered from the very beginning. And if you've ever done any sort of keyword research or content planning with SEO in mind, you likely know this. So coming up with content-friendly topics is something that you can do in tandem with your keyword research. or before that keyword research kind of piece, if you want to do a lot of brainstorming and then do the keyword research to kind of validate and tweak those ideas. So we see a lot of you are familiar with tools like SEMrush, which, as we mentioned, is the one that we prefer. A lot of Uber Suggest. I totally forgot Neil Patel bought them, so thanks for the reminder. Answer the Public definitely is good, is giving some brainstorming ideas for sure. Boz is a good one. Ahrefs has a decent keyword research tool as well. So when you're coming up with your topic ideas, you know, there's no right or wrong way you can go. And depending on the type of content that you're creating, you know, you might be geared more towards informational type of content. You might be geared more towards evergreen content that's always going to be relevant. If you have a blog, it might be a little more trendy or a little more time sensitive. But some ideas for different avenues that you can take to do some research on and brainstorm different topic ideas might be by the different types of products or the different categories of products or services that the company you work for sells. They might be specific to your brand or to your competitors, depending on the size of the company that you work for or write for. There actually might be some specific questions or specific queries that users have related to your specific company. You can think about keyword research as far as how it aligns with the customer journey, again, related to your brand, to your specific products or services that are offered. So if you want to, you know, give your manager some quote unquote quick wins as far as content that's going to help move the needle with either conversions or transactions, you might focus on content that's a little lower in the funnel, more geared towards people who are ready to make a purchase versus something that's a little more top of funnel, which is just kind of more informational queries. And by doing some competitor analysis, as Matt mentioned earlier, you can glean a lot of really good nuggets, especially by looking at some of the top competitors in your industry. I mean, as Jay mentioned, any brand that's worth their salt has some content hub of some form or another on their website, and they're probably doing a lot of things right. And there's a lot of free tools that you can use to figure out what some of the more high traffic pages are. That'll give you an insight into what people are looking for. So here's some examples. If you had a hot yoga studio in Philly, some of the keywords that you might be looking at based on some of those different opportunities. All right, so topic ideation tools, there are many of them. You guys have listed out a bunch of them. Obviously, as SEOs, you know, we want ones with proven search demand, which means there is a concrete number that we can attach to the number of people who are searching for that type of topic or that type of question per month. And so we choose tools that demonstrate that and are kind of proven in those space, like Ahrefs, like SEMrush, Google's Keyword Planner if you are paying for AdWords and are able to have that visibility. But there are plenty of other things that you can do too. So free tools, whether you can use Google and use their auto suggest or use the people also ask functions. They don't always bring up keywords with search demand, but they'll give you some really good ideas, and it's free. Answer the Public, like I said, is also a good one. If you're focused a little bit more on timely content, Google Trends, again, doesn't correspond to really concrete data that I would recommend to higher ups in the company necessarily, but if you're just looking for some general ideas to see where interest might lie, that can be great. Same thing with just keeping up on industry news to understand where the trends might be. And also invoking social listening, especially if your position includes social media components, which I'm sure a lot of you have done. Often overlooked as well, oh, go back for a second. Often overlooked is thinking about what your specific customers are looking for. So again, depending on your brand, if you've got a consumer base that you can kind of reach out to and conduct research around, you might have some visitor surveys that you can glean information from. If you have access to Google Analytics, we'll talk all about reporting in a little bit, but using your audience and behavior reports can give you some idea for types of content that your users are going to be more interested in, just inherently. And also, if you have a customer service component of your business, whether it's a large call center with people who are tracking queries, or it's just an info at email address and people are asking questions, you know, you can kind of figure out what answers or what questions you can answer using your content strategy through questions that your customers are asking. All right. So again, everything that we're covering today could be like a million different presentations. So hopefully we're giving you a good kind of base today. And from here, you can kind of take this deck and research the pieces that are of interest to you or that might be new to you. There are so many different content strategies that are specifically related to SEO. And so we just included some of the more common ones here. So depending on your goals, you might have a number of different strategies to deploy. So if your goal is to build leadership and authority, as Matt mentioned, EAT and Your Money or Life are going to be really kind of top things to keep in mind as far as the quality of the content goes. But if you want a kind of certain direction for that content to go or different activities to employ, you might do more guest posting, or you might be building relationships and publishing content on other outlets. You might be publishing more of your own studies or writing white papers and ebooks and demonstrating authority in that manner. If you have a development team or creative people on your team that you can rely on to build really great interactive tools, then you might be interested in doing more content that is closer to 10x content rather than just kind of the traditional blog post style of content. If you are tasked with just improving your visibility in search, if people in your company are relying on you to do more SEO friendly content, a simple blog, as long as it's high quality, is always going to help. There's never been a case where we have had a partner come to us who didn't see an increase by publishing quality content on their site. And so that's always a good way to go. As Jay mentioned, with some of the resources, that could include evergreen content or resource centers like the Renter's Warehouse example. You could deploy a content gap analysis to see what types of content you already have on your site versus what some of your competitors have, and where you might be missing some valuable real estate in Google search results. And you can also rely on user-generated content as well. So a lot of times when we think about content marketing, we think about content that we or our team are producing and putting out there, but really valuable content can be created by your actual fans and requires a lot less legwork from you. So whether that is including social media feeds and streams on your website, making sure that user reviews are able to be generated and tracked properly within your site if you sell products, for example, even things like adding testimonials, all of that counts as content that can help to improve the organic positioning of kind of the results and keywords that you're ranking for. And finally, if you're looking to increase your traffic and also have it be a little bit more qualified and eventually lead to conversions, whether that's leads and signups or calls, or could actually be product purchasing. Again, content gap analysis helps there. The building of content silos or hub and spoke strategies, they come with a lot of names, but it's essentially choosing a pillar or cornerstone content piece that you really want to create that's like either a very, very long form, very in-depth piece of content, or a sort of like a landing page that users can go to find access to a whole bunch of other resources, and then kind of building that out. It's definitely a winning way to go, as well as publishing things like copy blocks on e-commerce type pages, and content pruning, which would be going back into older pieces of content and revamping them or removing any pages that are no longer valuable.
Yeah, and Jess, one thing that I'll ask you, what would you say to someone that I know that we've run into this, but someone, either your boss or another team member, who says, the blog doesn't make me money, so what is the point of having a blog or posting to the blog regularly? What would you say?
Our favorite / least favorite question.
What would you give?
Yeah, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier. You showed a great example of a partner of ours who stopped posting to their blog and they saw their performance start to decrease, and that's absolutely true. Good content has a shelf life, and so what we typically find is usually if you are publishing new content and it starts to do well, it will carry you for maybe a year, maybe two, but after that, it'll start to fall off. It'll start to be replaced by other content that's better, that's newer, or if you're not publishing new content to your site, Google thinks, well, maybe maybe this website isn't getting as much attention. Maybe there's nobody who's kind of helming it in the back end. If there's nobody responding, or if there's nobody kind of maintaining it, why would I want to point users to that site? So I would say if that's a question that you're getting at work, you can certainly point to, well, here's what will happen if we don't publish to a blog. We can definitely start to see the negative effects there. And as far as the positive effects go, we're going to talk all about reporting in the section after this. So I think we'll touch on some of the other benefits to content, but I would hope most people here are of the mindset that the benefits related to content go far beyond just kind of making money, because we know that if you're kind of looking at the success of your content marketing strategy based on how much money it's making, that's kind of a tough sell. But if you're looking at things like engagement, if you're looking at things like assisted conversions, if you're looking at overall visibility and brand awareness, and all of those pieces that we know are super important to building a high quality brand, then content marketing is absolutely essential. Alrighty, so creating and adhering to a schedule, probably the trickiest piece for a lot of us, especially if you're juggling numerous different types of content strategies. I know for me, Matt, and Jay, if we're working with a partner, we'll typically be working on things like their title tags and meta descriptions at the same time as publishing blog content or creating a resource center at the same time as doing e-commerce copy blocks. And so having a schedule is absolutely paramount to making sure that you're kind of moving forward on these pieces. And also super important, just keeping track of the work that you're doing. If you don't have a place to document your wins, I mean, if you have somebody over your shoulder looking at how content's performing, you need to have a place to be able to say, hey, here's all of the content that I've been doing so that you can look at performance over time. So when we talk about creating and adhering to a schedule, here's some of our recommendations. Obviously, there are a million different templates out there. Here's a small snapshot of one that we use. We prefer calendars that are dynamic. So we use Google Sheets because it can be updated automatically. We're not worried about saving or replacing files. Everybody who is a stakeholder in the process has access and they can see live updates at any given time. And it's interactive, so everybody can update it without being worried that anybody's going to break anything or mess anything up. It's also comprehensive. So, so many calendars that we see only include like, is it done or is it not done? Or what day is it going up? And they don't kind of track all the different pieces that are involved. For us, we want to know at what point was the keyword research completed? Is there an outline that's created next to the content? Is there imagery? And are we waiting on creative for the piece to go live, or are we waiting on edits? So having all of those pieces in here in a nice visual checkbox format is something that's really worked well for us and our partners. And then making sure that it's well connected. This is a piece that I think we're still working on with some pieces, but when you have a content calendar or content strategy that you're rolling out, there's so many different documents that you have to go between and share. And so the easier it is to find that calendar and use it as a central hub, the better. And so what you don't see is further off on the screen on this document, we'll actually have links to where those conversations are taking place, links to all of the different pieces within the content calendar, so that we can easily find all those different pieces. And this calendar itself is shared in a whole bunch of different spaces too. All right, so once you've gotten through the work of actually brainstorming your ideas for content, doing the keyword research, you've written the content, you've optimized it using the best practices that Jay laid out, usually most of us are victims of the set it and forget it mentality, where we publish it and then we move on to the next thing. And a lot of times you'll have a huge quantity of content that you're trying to get through, have a really strict cadence that you're trying to work through. And so you kind of leave content dormant, or you see it perform really well, like I said, for 1 or 2 years, and then it kind of falls off and you may or may not take notice. So in our experience, good content does take 2 to 3 months to begin ranking. That is why SEOs are known for saying, it'll take 2 or 3 months for your content to perform. And anybody who tells you they can do faster is probably engaging in some bad habits that you don't want to be a part of. So what we typically recommend for our partners if they are sort of impatient or they want content to perform better is, well, then prove that it's really good content. You know, having other people and other departments involved in your content and its exposure is so necessary to performing well. And you know, all the best brands out there are doing these things. They're sharing the content on their social media. They are emailing it to their list. They are doing some targeted outreach to try and make news outlets and publishers aware of really great content pieces they're creating, and they're internally linking to them. So, you know, how many of you have been to an e-commerce website and seen links to blog content or interactive tools directly on category pages? You know, smaller businesses don't do that often enough. But all of those pieces kind of come into play in looking at the performance of content over time. And sort of tying into that is ongoing maintenance of content. So whether you're doing, you know, evergreen content or something that's a bit more time sensitive, it's always worth going back over your content on a regular cadence and refreshing as needed. So sometimes, especially if it's a your money, your life situation, you really want to take stock of the content that you have that's, you know, you might not be thinking about because you might have published it months or even years ago, but if it's still getting organic traffic and organic visibility, somebody might be using that today and relying on it to solve a problem of theirs or to answer a question of theirs. And so is that information still relevant? Is it still accurate? Those are things that Google is definitely taking into consideration. And if it's not, you can bet that you're not going to be high up in the search for very long. So we suggest baking maintenance into your content strategy, you know, baking it into your overall cadence. That might involve refreshing links on old content. If you have a blog, I guarantee probably more than half of the links that you have pointing both outwards to third-party resources as well as inwards to other pages on your site are probably outdated. They might either be linking to 404 pages or they might be redirecting elsewhere. So just that small piece is something that we call SEO hygiene. Practicing good SEO hygiene is, you know, kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, but it's definitely helpful because overall it creates a better user experience, and that's going to make your content rank more highly. And I think possibly on the next slide we have an example of an editor's note that gets shared. So, you know, when you're publishing new content, there's always a oh, it's not on this slide. Okay. When you're publishing updates to content, you know, there's an SEO debate between whether you want to change the actual date that the content was published or not. What we typically recommend is add an editor's note instead of changing the date, especially if, you know, if it's in WordPress, and actually sharing and making it visible to anyone reading to say, hey, just so you know, this piece is actually published on this date. And you might even share some information about what or why it was published. All right. And with all that, just a quick roundup of some useful documents and templates that you may or may not have thought about SEO being involved in, but it very much should be. Goes all the way up the chain to your marketing plan. Some of you may or may not be involved in kind of larger marketing strategies within the company, but any sort of content marketing plan that gets created should have SEO in mind. It's one of the channels that you're kind of targeting. And so if you're able to get involved in those meetings, get involved in those discussions, or at the very least kind of look through and give some feedback, we definitely recommend doing so. And then, of course, any content strategy that's going to come into play will absolutely take content marketing into effect. Your content calendar is obviously going to be a piece that directly involves SEO. Any piece of content that gets published to the website, any new web page that gets created, or any page that gets updated is going to have an impact on SEO. And so having visibility into those things and being able to provide feedback, do the keyword research, provide some ideas for optimization is going to be useful. So that ties in perfectly. Like I said, keyword research is going to be something that's an ongoing practice. No matter how big or small your website is, it is something that you'll always be doing. Content gap analysis is something that we recommend doing, you know, every year or so. And of course, content marketing reporting.